Welcome to Discussions and Dragons, the show where we discuss Dungeons and Dragons. I am your host, Resident Player Character, and I'm joined today by our resident Dungeon Master. Today's episode will cover creating your first combat encounter as a DM, but first, how are you doing today, Resident Dungeon Master?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing just fine. It's a beautiful day outside. We're going to talk about something that's your specialty today. That is encounters. Please tell me what an encounter is.
Encounters are simply where the players are trying to complete an objective, whether that's through combat or just any means, but it generally involves a monster or a non-player character that they're interacting with in some way.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you taught me how to play a year or two ago, you put me in an encounter. It was a controlled environment, but you picked a monster, you picked a setting, and you picked an encounter that I would have to deal with as my character that I made.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is very good for new players to do. If you are a DM listening, have your players go through a mock encounter, maybe individually and then as a group before you hop into a campaign with them. And as a player, ask your DM if you can have a mock encounter, and we will show you a pseudo mock encounter and what to do in what places and how many different possibilities there are and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But encounters are a very useful tool, especially for new players to learn just the nuance of the game, because you've learned, we've taught you that all the base stuff you need to know about your race and class and all of your abilities and spellcasting and stuff, but now is actually the application of those characters in a setting in which will affect your character maybe permanently.
One of the biggest issues I've seen is newer players, they can have all this information, but when it actually comes down to, alright, you're in group time, you're actually playing, you get thrown into an encounter, and then bam, it's your turn, and then you just freeze.
Yeah,
you're
I have that a lot.
Yeah, and just having some practice will kind of ease you into the position of like, oh, I have some idea of what I want to do on my turn, and you know where I'm going to go, and just all that other stuff, and it speeds up the game a little bit.
Just knowing what you're going to do.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, it helps the DM a lot because sometimes combat encounters, they can last for hours. I know we're 3 hours deep into probably about a 6-hour encounter in our current campaign. And it's just because there are so many enemies. But the players, the more time they take on each of their turns, that just adds up.
And we went over initiative last time. So you guys, if you listen to that episode, you know how long it takes to get through actual combat. So that's that's probably 50% of an encounter.
Yeah, just actually, you know, setting up initiative and getting through the turn order, making sure everybody's you know, doing their stuff correctly. But really, with like a mock encounter, you can have, instead of the whole party, you can have like 1 or 2 players come in, maybe one with a little bit more experience to kind of guide the newer player, and then you can throw them up in a small controlled environment, maybe 1 monster, maybe 2, probably just 1 is better. But let them explore their own abilities and show them examples and give them a good foundation of, oh, I'm in this situation and I want to use this ability, and show them like the consequences of like, oh, well, sometimes, you know, using your channel divinity when there's no undead around is not such a good idea. But you
waste of a spell slot if I've ever seen one. Is it a spell? I don't remember.
It's not a spell. It's a
see.
It's
teaching me stuff every day.
Yeah. But you don't want to waste that because that's on like a daily cooldown.
Yeah.
So
that's what I was thinking of.
You know, you don't want to go into a house and be like channel divinity unless you know and say, hey, I've seen some zombies around here, some skeletons. Definitely need to be using that.
Oh yeah.
So you don't want to just use your abilities willy-nilly because some of them take a while to recharge, like spell slots, like you just mentioned, and being able to show a new player that, say, all right, save some of your more important abilities for where they have like an actual niche in the playing area, maybe not during combat. And you can even use these things out of combat. It's just we're going to be talking about all aspects.
And I'd say that also plays into character, because if your character is skittish and trigger happy, they're gonna sling a spell at anything that moves.
Oh yeah.
Well, if they're like in contrast, if they're like a trained wizard, they're going to hold their wand to their side or their staff down until they absolutely need to cast a spell.
I've seen a couple of times where I'll give my player who is a wizard and knows the shield spell the option to cast it as a reaction, and they could, and I say, all right, you have this guy coming to hit you. I roll my dice for my attack roll behind the DM screen, and I say, okay, it's what's your AC? Just double checking. I said, okay, it's gonna hit. I'm not gonna tell him what the number is because I know he's got that shield spell. because if I give them more information, he might just respond with a shield spell, or he might not, depending on that. I want to give him the option to mess up.
Is that considered metagaming with that information?
Just a little bit. Like I don't want to give my players too much information to like just make it so easy for them that they're never gonna mess up.
Mhm.
But at the same time, you've got a golem rearing its arm back
Mhm.
to punch you in the face. Are you gonna throw up a shield spell, or are you just gonna try to dodge the attack?
Mhm.
And
There's a correct answer to this, by the way.
he threw up a shield spell,
Yep.
and the golem shattered the shield spell.
Uh-huh.
So I gave him the option to use that spell slot or not, and he's like, he recognized the threat, and that +5 to AC almost helped him.
Yep.
But
almost.
I just rolled high enough, and that's
Now,
that's really
that
how
does
it is.
raise a question in my head of, is there a possible way to get out of most encounters and just not have them happen once they start? Like, can you flee most of the time or find some way to surpass combat itself?
Yes.
I find that really interesting because you will have... You were telling me earlier, and been telling me since we've started playing together, that you have many encounters that we have never fought because we just avoided them.
Or like you just never come across.
Mhm.
Um,
Because we decided to go a different way.
and
If you're a linear path DM, I'm not sure if this is a specific type, but this is what I would categorize it as. If you just have, like, this encounter is going to happen, and then this one is going to happen because the first one happened, you can do that. I'd say that's boring. You should have kind of, like, branching stuff, you know?
it needs to be a little bit more fluid, and the way you set up your encounters needs to be more reactive, which is we'll just show you a simple example
Mhm.
here in a sec on this episode. But yet, like going on your point, some encounters you just avoid entirely, and that kind of sucks as a DM, especially if you spend a lot of time like
Mhm.
comparing the encounter.
That's happened to you before.
But at the same time, it could have been a possibly deadly encounter, for the players. But they could have also skipped over some potential rewards, and that's really on them. That's their
Mhm.
decision as a party, and if you have to be conscious that they might not say, "Hey, I don't want to go into this deep dark cave right now. I'm kind of low on spell slots.
Mhm.
I kind of don't need to
Risk that.
Yeah, you don't need to risk it because there might not be a reward. Some encounters don't reward anything.
And that's
Some
what I meant.
encounters
It's
do.
more like there are encounters that pretty much are going to result in death that you should avoid.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And it's a matter of
you should
knowing
be
that.
You should be putting encounters in your game that aren't all balanced with balanced loot.
Mhm.
You should give some that give a lot of loot with an easy encounter, and give a little amount of loot with a hard encounter.
Not
Just-
exclusively that, though, because that would make people angry.
No. But you need to find that happy little balance.
Oh, yeah.
And that's like a really fine line that you have to train yourself
Mhm.
to be a good DM. And it took me just so much trial and error, and I'm still in the learning process for a lot of my things. I know I've still got some growing to do as a DM.
Just being fair, but also being fun.
Yeah, exactly. I want to make sure my players have a good time,
Mhm.
because I'm just thinking to myself, what if I'm in their shoes?
Totally.
And so, just continuing on with this episode, we'll kind of go through a step-by-step instructional guide of just making an easy mock encounter
Mhm.
for getting your players accustomed to combat and exploring an area.
Mhm.
So,
This is your territory.
alright, yeah. So, just starting off, the first thing you want to do is you want to have a reason for your players to go and do something, whether it's a quest to retrieve something, whether they're investigating, maybe it's someone's disappearance, maybe something was stolen.
Need an objective.
They definitely need a
Whether they know
why.
their objective or not.
They need a
It's
why.
not up to them.
And there could be underlying objectives as well,
Mhm.
and like different objectives for different characters, but they all need a good reason, or the party itself needs a reason to go and do this thing. Now, for a mock encounter, obviously you can just say, you can make up really anything on the
Mhm.
fly. You could say, hey, this villager had like a tool that was imbued with a magical property, and it never rusts.
Mhm.
And so you've been sent to retrieve that tool because it was stolen a couple of nights ago by a creature. No one really saw it, but they saw it head towards a cave in the side of like a hill or a cliff.
Mhm.
And so your task, as you and the one other person maybe that you're playing with for this mock encounter, is to go and get that item. And you don't know what's inside that cave.
Mhm.
You haven't discovered it yet. But here's where you, as a character, you could boldly run in. You say I'm already prepared enough. I already got all my adventuring gear. Let's go. Maybe you do a little more reconnaissance. Maybe you talk to some more townsfolk, get some more information. play into your character for the things like this, and let your player, give your player like options, like directly ask them, what do you want to do, and say, do you want to talk to more townspeople? Do you want to go investigate the site? Do you want to just run straight in?
I would say that's the most common question as a DM. What do you want to do?
Yeah, and but I'm not always going to ask you specifically, hey, here are some like options you have. I'm just gonna, what do you do? I'm going to give you a description of the area, and then I'm going to let you take the reins from there, because this is your game. It's the DM's world.
Yes.
It's how the players interact with the stuff in there. So
if you're in a new party, you're going to find somebody who always wants to charge into everything. Don't let them.
Or
straight up, as a player, as a DM, he might want him to do that, but as a player, don't let him do that. Stop them. It's not going to end well 99% of the time.
It's not ending well right now, but
yeah, we have a party member who does that.
I digress. The next thing after you've given like your players a reason is you want to sketch out a layout for your like pseudo dungeon, or this like mini dungeon. I already took a few minutes before we recorded this episode, drew out like a small little cave system where there's an entrance, and then
this is what I was talking about earlier with branching scenarios.
There's a path to the left, there's a path to the right. Now, giving your players the option of choosing left or right is good. Just seeing who wants to go where. You can have a party decision. And just for players, never split the party.
I was about to ask that.
It's really just a bad idea, because the encounters are set up for the entire party to be there. So if less of the party is there, the encounters are going to get exponentially harder. He's
not exaggerating. Literally, mathematically exponentially harder.
Yeah, there are a lot of tables set up in the Dungeon Master's Guide that provide DMs with correct ways to balance encounters and like really fine tune something so that it's fair for the players, but it's still creative and challenging to the point where it's fun. And so in this mini dungeon, you have option 1 and option 2. It's the left and the right, respectively. Now, let's say in option 1 to the left, you've been traveling for a few minutes down this dark tunnel. You got like a torch. Maybe you see your torch flicker a little bit, and you feel a slight breeze coming from the left tunnel. Right, and you're like, all right, so maybe there's another entrance out there. That can be like a logical conclusion. But then you look to the right and you say, all right, there's no breeze coming from this way. It kind of veers down a little bit. The left one kind of veered up, and it's a little wet on the walls. Maybe there's a water source down here. So you have to think, all right, am I going to go down the left path or go down the right path with the water versus the breeze? Now, the breeze logically might lead to that secondary exit, so that might be something you want to explore if you want to explore the safer option. Or you could just keep that in the back of your mind. You're like, all right, I've got like 2 options for an exit. I've got this one, this one, and this one,
and you can always go back the way you came. You can say screw it all together and not even go in.
Yeah, you really could.
You can scale them out and outside. If you throw your DM for a loop, that is how you play in my book. If you make sure that he prepares stuff on the fly, you have a higher chance of succeeding, because he hasn't prepared for what happens when you fail yet. Just a little player tip. He's smiling at me right now because he knows it's true.
So, these things for like the descriptions of the tunnels, the slight breeze, the damp walls. These are things that you can ask your players to roll perception for, and if they have a higher perception roll, or maybe even a high passive perception, you could give them these descriptions, which could help them make a better decision for the path they need to take. Let's say in this case, the objective is to the right, but I give them the option to go to the left as well, because I want to see what they do. I just want to give them options. It's better for the player, because you feel like you're more in control of where you're going and what you're doing. If it's just like you were saying, a straight line and there's no options,
you can predict it.
It gets boring. It's the same thing every single time. But if you give your players a lot of options, it's more fun. So
now, something about perception real quick is that people don't give it enough credit for how important it is, because if you don't roll high enough on your perception, your passive perception or perception roll, you might not realize that some cave water dripping from the ceiling is green slime.
Could be, yeah. Or
what usually comes after green slime?
Death.
No. What specific entity?
A slime. Or an ooze.
Or what's a more angular one that you know of?
Gelatinous cube.
If you find a cube made of jello, run. You will die.
This is one of the scariest monsters in first edition. It's a gelatinous cube. Real quick, is a
that's all it is.
15 foot cube. I'm talking 15 on all sides.
That's
So
like if you're in a room right now, like a bedroom. That's probably the room. That's how big it is.
a little bit bigger even.
Yeah.
And then it has tentacles that lash out and attack you and try to suck you into the cube. And the ooze is actually acidic, and that's how it eats its prey. So it'll suck you in and start slowly
Mhm.
dissolving you like stomach acid. And so when you look in a gelatinous cube, you can see like items and things that can't
Bunch
be
of
dissolved.
skeletons too.
A bunch of skeletons too. Yep, because it eats organic matter.
Ugh.
So if you, now they're slow, but they are deadly.
They will catch you if you don't escape them.
So be very, very careful. And then, just defeating a gelatinous cube is as simple as stabbing a couple of holes in a water balloon.
Yep.
Eventually it just kind of bursts.
Or you leave it alone.
Or you leave it alone.
That's another way to beat it. With
So
no casualties. We had a gelatinous cube encounter in one of our little campaigns we did.
we did. I knew as a DM how to fight against it, and I
Mhm.
saw there was an item in there that I could definitely
This
use.
is when Resident Dungeon Master was playing as a player.
I reached into the cube,
Mm-hmm.
took a lot of damage,
A
and
lot of
pulled out a
damage.
magical item that let me start to cast spells. So I made a sacrifice saying, hey, I'll lose a couple of hit points, but now I have access to my spell list. I'm good to go.
His character in that campaign was very, nonchalant about her powers.
Yeah, or just like sacrificing for getting an advantage. It's not like it's more of a not, I wouldn't say apathy. But
it's
was-
like nonchalant.
I guess nonchalant would be a better way to play.
Because we were stuck in jail because we, in the game, we were stuck in jail because we were put in there by guards of some town that we were, stealing something from or something. You were a druid, and I think you know what story I'm about to tell. You showed us, the other two people in the cells next to you, that you could druid, what's it called?
Wild shape.
Wild shape, by just turning into a squirrel, turning into yourself, turning into a squirrel, turning into yourself, and you said, and I quote, look, squirrel, unsquirrel, squirrel, unsquirrel.
The problem there was I could have turned into a squirrel and slipped through the bars,
Yeah.
and then maybe turned into another animal to help us escape. But
Yep.
I wasted that, and
You wasted it purposely, right?
so back on the pseudo encounter.
I wish you could see how he just looked at me.
All right. So which way are you gonna choose? Like, we'll just.
I am the resident player character, so I will take the player position, and you are the DM.
Right.
I would like you set it up for me again, so people know.
All right. So you've been traveling down this tunnel.
Am I alone or with the party?
You're gonna be alone for this one.
Cool. That's never good.
So you're traveling down. You got all, your gear rattling around in your back. It's getting kind of going downhill, but it's not too bad.
Mm-hmm. So you said there's minimal tracks on the ground, or none that I can see?
It's more of a tunnel that has a nice earthy ground to it, where you can leave tracks in there, but it just keeps getting moved around.
So it's like a soft cave.
Yeah, it is like a
It's not
soft
like rocks
cave,
in the floor.
but it's not soft enough to really hold all of the tracks, and it is
Yeah.
a little damp from just a little bit of runoff
Okay. From outside.
from outside. Yeah.
So is it wet outside?
Not precisely
Okay.
wet like it just rained, but it's still you can see where water has come into this cave before, maybe a little divot on the side.
Okay.
It's not. It wouldn't be the best for tracking if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Because it
So-
disappears really quickly.
Going down this cave and down, you got your torchlight that you're
Mm-hmm.
being led by. Assuming that the player character doesn't have dark vision or anything like
Dark
that.
vision we did talk about, I believe, in our races episode.
Yes.
Just a quick review. Dark vision is essentially night vision for certain races.
You don't have to use a torch like a human would,
Mhm.
but you can't see perfectly like it
I
was.
believe it's not colors you can see, and it's kind of fuzzy, but it's still you can.
It would be in some specific scenarios you can see up to 60 feet perfectly fine, and then another 60 feet
Mhm.
kind of in dim, and you can see blobs.
Yeah.
Essentially. So essentially, this cave right now, you have a nice path that it's kind of like a jarring split, right? You can see, and this is definitely not man-made. This is something that somebody carved out. This is just a natural forming structure from erosion.
Mhm.
But you see that it sharply curves upwards,
Mhm.
and you can feel that breeze. You can't see any light from there yet, but it definitely the torch is flickering. It's not too strong of a breeze, but it is nice. It smells like fresh air.
Okay.
So
Now, me, just as a thought for a player, this means to me that there is an exit somewhere down there because of the air flowing through
up there.
it. Up there.
So I'm giving another option for the players, which actually turns out to be kind of a trap, in the end, but it's still something for them to explore.
Yeah.
It's essentially if you are you going left or are you going right?
I'll go right.
So if you were to go left, there is an encounter I set up where there is what's called a piercer. It's basically just a creature that hangs from the ceiling and drops on prey in caves.
It's like
And
a big
kinda,
bat.
Kind of
I'm
hard to see.
assuming a lot scarier.
Kind of like a big bat, but
Like
it has
Batman.
no arms and no legs and no wings. It's a grub, and it bites hard. That's
Does
all
it
it is.
fall or does it like glide down?
No, it falls.
Oh, that's cool. That's fun.
Because it kind of hangs onto the ceiling,
Ew.
kind of like a stalactite,
It's gross.
and just falls on you.
I don't like it anymore. I want to go left. Oh wait, no, that is left. I want to go right.
So let's say you get past this piercer and you manage to defeat it, and you go up. There's actually a like a bird's nest, like a big bird's nest with some eggs in it.
How big? How big are the eggs?
They're not like chicken egg size. They're more like
Ostrich
egg sized.
Okay, that's cool.
And this nest
Great.
is something you could like curl up and sleep in, big. But there is no
I'm sure I could.
bird right there.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, what do you do here?
I don't approach it. First of all, this room is how big?
It's not a room. It's just you can see out there, like some light came out, and then you like turn the corner, and then bam, there's the bird's nest, and what looks to be like an edge of the edge of the
So just in a little divot in the cave.
might be in the mountainside.
Okay.
So like if the player character were to go out and explore a little bit, he would see, hey, this is a cliff face. So if he were to be chased by a monster up here to try to escape, there actually wouldn't be an escape. It would be a sheer drop, and you're looking at about, I would say, since he's only level 1, maybe a 20-foot drop.
Okay.
20-30 foot drop would
So
be
all my health.
deadly. Yeah, exactly. But at the same time,
Fall damage is extremely deadly in this game.
player character could use this to the advantage if they were to throw a creature off the ledge, maybe like the piercer or whatever they might encounter.
Knocks the eggs off.
So
Make something angry.
maybe you take an egg and you
I would
take
not.
lunch.
I would leave it alone.
So
If the eggs were like bird sized, I would do that. But if they're ostrich sized, I'm gonna leave them alone because I can't exactly conceal that if I get caught.
big old egg.
Yep. So I'm gonna go left then.
So you have right. So you're going down.
I thought I went right and I saw the eggs.
No. This was left.
I'm lost. All right. This is the point. He wants me to be lost. So let's go right.
Okay, so you're going right, and you're going down and down, and it's getting a little bit more, dank would be the precise word here.
Yeah. Is it like smelly or is it still like earthy smell?
It was like an earthy smell. It kind of transitioned to like a
Rotten.
not exactly rotten,
Ripe.
but it's more of just like a wet cave smell.
Okay.
I've been caving before, so I would have a little bit, but it's just like dirt and
Water
and like stagnant
Still water. Yeah.
and kind of smells not exactly like death, but
Salty.
a little bit of decay. Not precise, not salty. It would
I haven't been in a cave before.
it would be fresh water.
Okay.
Just from from it being runoff, it wouldn't be salt water.
Mhm.
And so, player character approaching.
Yeah.
The walls are getting wetter and wetter, and then you can see, like on the torchlight, there's a reflection, and you're actually coming up in this cavernous pool in the cave.
Yeah.
What do you do?
You said it's still water, like stagnant water?
Yeah, it is stagnant water.
I'm gonna look in it to see if I can see a reflection.
The water actually, and this is where I would ask for like a perception check.
Yeah.
So let's say you roll decently high, like maybe 15, 16. The water is actually really murky, and since it's like still, it's just there's just not quite enough light to pierce through it. Just maybe something's diluting the water.
So it's like opaque.
Yeah, but it's like a dark opaque.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can see there's a little path on the side around this pool, and there's another direction you can go. So the path doesn't just end here at this lake, and you can see there's some stalactites that are just
Into the water?
Into the water, yeah.
So it's not stagnant.
No. It's not like it's like moving or flowing, but it's like every now and then you've got like a drip.
Okay.
Forming.
So would this path be, just like a meta note, would this path be visible with my torchlight, or would I have to roll perception and notice it?
No. This would be like a visible path. You could like see it.
Okay.
It's just you can't see like into the water. And here's where you kind of, as a DM, you can choose to say, hey, There might be something in the water.
Mhm.
There might not.
I recall a time where you did put something in the water, and it almost killed somebody.
There are a lot of creatures that DMs can put in the water.
There are a lot of creatures that look like water.
There are a lot of creatures that are water.
Yep.
So be
Never.
very careful.
One thing I can tell you as a player is never trust anything you see. Always use your other senses or your other like skills to sense things that may not be what they seem every time you get a chance.
That's why you have magical abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like detect magic and what's
detect
the
good and evil.
Yeah.
Like some extrasensory stuff. Lots of spells, lots of abilities that can do this.
Oh yeah.
So, let's say there's no encounter here.
Okay.
And going in, you start to smell the smell of rust.
Okay.
And metal.
Okay.
Okay. You can
Like an
sort of
irony smell.
like an irony smell, like
That's ironic.
a ferrous smell. And just going across this path, which I'm assuming you will,
Mhm.
you just keep going.
I
and,
wouldn't naturally, but for the sake of the explanation, I will.
you're keep on going in, and eventually you make the smell just gets stronger and stronger, and
Mhm.
you go in, and you hear like a little bit of rustling, a little bit of metal clanking on each other,
Rustling.
and you as you like peering out of the corner, and with your torchlight, you can just barely see the hide of a creature, kind of on top of the like a pile of metal scrap. It looks like,
Mhm.
and just the like the torchlight glinting off of the
Mhm.
like the creature is enough to give you a sense of, oh, this thing's kind of big. It's about as like it comes up to like your waist. Think of like a
What's the creature size?
would be medium.
Okay.
But
So that's like a person.
But it's a monstrosity. It's a like when he says person, it's like that 5
Humanoid.
foot by 5 foot, not humanoid.
Well, yeah.
It would fit in a 5 foot by 5 foot,
It's like people sized.
and the but it's not like huge. It's not something that takes up a very wide, or it's not very long.
Mhm.
So you could think of this as just a giant turtle, like that. That's probably how big it would be.
Like a tortoise.
Like a tortoise, but it's not like tortoise shaped.
Yeah.
It has like a hide. It kind of looks like a really big bug with a like really
Like a centipede.
almost
Like a beetle.
It's kind of hard to explain, and it's kind of got this orangey color, maybe like the color of rust.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So
It is essentially just like a big metal bug, right?
basically, yeah.
Yeah.
But it is.
So imagine like a bug the size of a big dog that's like made of metal.
A good tip here: never disclose the name of the creature.
Because there might be people in your party who know it.
Exactly. Always give very detailed descriptions so that the players might understand what this creature wants, how to defeat this creature,
Mhm.
like some weaknesses, some strengths, some weaknesses, etc.
Yep.
Never give out the name. Never give out exact like stats, like armor class or hit
Mhm.
points or strength, anything like that.
That's all stuff for the DMIs only until people figure it out. You never exclusively tell them either unless like they defeated it and doesn't matter anymore and they're never going to encounter it again. But if you tell them stuff like the armor class, they're going to plan accordingly. If you tell them stuff like the stat, they're going to plan
They're
accordingly.
gonna
And that's
metagame.
called metagaming.
So
Where it's just like you know more information than you should and you use that to your advantage. That means you're ignoring role playing, ignoring your character mechanics, what your character would do, what your character should do, and just doing whatever the most effective tactic available is. And that's what meta stands for, most effective tactics available.
Mhm.
So just anyone who didn't know that. I think we covered that before though, but it's just a refresher.
So, in this scenario, you see this creature feasting on whatever is in front of it in this
Mhm.
pile, and off to the side, she kind of like discarded the item that you were sent to retrieve. What was it? Like a
I'd say like a satchel full of valuable coins.
well, it was like a pickaxe or something that couldn't rust, like a farming
Alright.
tool.
Did you mention that
you-
before, or did you just come up with that?
No, we said that before.
All right, cool.
So
I forgot.
so it seems like this creature was disinterested in this item.
Okay.
But that's the thing you're sent here to retrieve. So what do you do?
Has it already spotted me?
It has
Not
not
spotted me yet. I would snuff out my light, but then that puts me in the dark. I don't know what race or class I am, so I'm assuming. Let's just say I
Let's
have
say
dark
human.
vision. Never mind.
'Cause otherwise, you wouldn't need the torch.
So, I have my torch. What I would do if I'm alone is leave and get more people to come back in here with me. But given that this creature is not that big, I could probably take it. Let's just assign a class to me really quick. Just tell me one.
Let's say you're a fighter.
All right.
Human fighter, easy.
Basically vanilla in this.
Mhm.
That's like simplest you can get besides like human paladin or human ranger.
You hit and run.
Yep. So, what I would do, I don't know how to play fighter, but what I would do is maybe like try not to grab its attention if it hasn't noticed me yet. What I would ask as a player too is how far am I from the item, how far is it from the item, and how far am I from it. And
Probably about, like,
the DM would probably draw a diagram or like put your characters, your minis on the board in a certain way so you can visualize it.
like a few feet away from the
A few
item.
feet being like you and me, or like 10.
A little bit more than you and me, probably like you to the
Door.
wall over here. I would say like 8 feet
Okay.
away from the item, but it like it's focused on the pile itself and it's to the left, kind of on the wall.
So if I breathe too much, it'll notice me. If I'm too loud,
Well,
it has a chance of noticing me.
I mean, it kind of sounds like like
That's
this
good
sound
on the
of
waveform.
shredding metal, and yeah, and but it's being kind of loud with how it's eating.
Okay.
Kind
It's
of-
eating metal.
Yeah, it sounds like it's eating.
Do I have any armor on?
Yes, you would have like some leather.
No metal.
You might
Besides,
have,
like,
you might have,
buckles.
you might have some chain armor on.
Okay.
Um,
I wouldn't want to be wearing metal. If you just told me it eats metal, I wouldn't want to be wearing metal. So that's just a tip for your own perception as a person for what your DM tells you. But if I'm close to this item, you're setting up the situation where I can go to try to grab the item, and I'm going to take the bait just for the explanation. So I'm going to try to go grab the item.
The player could either directly encounter the creature, maybe set up a distraction.
Yeah.
And then grab the item and run.
Mhm.
The player could defeat the creature in combat
Yes.
and then get the item and whatever spoils are left.
Mhm.
But remember, the objective here is just to get the item.
Yes.
So if you were able to, maybe the creature is so distracted with that it's eating and it's disinterested in the item.
If you're stealthy enough, you could probably do your objective.
You could even try interacting with the creature. Maybe it's non-hostile.
Mhm.
You really don't know.
I don't believe that, but you could try.
So just for like learning purposes here, a rust monster, which is what this is, a CR2. He can't take this in combat.
What does a CR2 mean?
CR2 means you need 4 level 2 characters to evenly match this thing.
And I'm one level 1.
You are 1 level 1, which means this thing is 8 times as powerful as you.
Yep.
Just because it's got some very high damaging abilities
Mhm.
that could easily kill a level 1,
Yep.
and because it has a decent amount of hit points and a decently sized armor class.
Probably all more than mine.
It's hard to hit, you got like 3 times your hit points,
It's made of metal
and it can one-shot you.
and can crawl on walls. So to me, this would be an
No, this
encounter.
is a different thing.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
So this is an encounter that I would not do at all. I would leave, try to get my item maybe, but I'm assuming that this thing is hostile. I haven't read anything or looked at anything, but I'm assuming that if it's in a cave and it has this item, it might be hostile. But
At the same time, there is a special ability on this creature that makes it harder for players to hit it and kill it,
Mhm.
and it corrodes things that hit it that are non-magical.
Mhm.
So if you were to take like a knife or a hammer and hit this thing, your hammer or knife would immediately start corroding, and then you would get negative bonuses to dealing damage and hitting with it.
you hit it with a rusty weapon.
Yeah, and eventually, like you hit it enough times, or try to hit it, like try to kill it enough, hit it enough times.
Mhm.
Like if you miss, obviously you miss, but
Yeah.
you hit it and it lands a blow, your weapon will be destroyed.
Yeah.
And it's a permanent debuff, so you can't really you would need a new weapon. This is why this is a CR2. It's because it provides a permanent negative debuff to the characters, making it harder for them to kill it.
Mhm.
So the answer here is maybe you trade it. Maybe you try to interact with it,
Give it something it can use and take back the thing it can't.
and you're already closer to the exit. Maybe you're like 15, 20 feet away from this thing, right?
Mhm.
You already have a head start, and it might not be that fast. Though it is actually kind of fast.
Yeah, if it was on any kind of legs more than 2, I would assume it's faster than me.
It's got 4 legs,
That's
and they
terrifying.
are big. They're about like twice the size of your
Average
thighs.
human legs.
Mhm.
That's terrifying. So yeah, that's one way you could do it. You could try to trade it, like you said. You could try to like just escape and come back later.
This thing, if you would imagine, kind of comes up to your waist,
Mhm.
and it's about as long as a big dog.
Yeah.
But
So
it's
it's like
about
a-
as wide as a.
Desk,
I would say not exactly like a big desk,
small
but
desk.
I would say it's about 2 to 3 feet wide.
Okay, so it's like a really big, wide dog made of metal and is a bug.
Think of like maybe a big beetle.
Yeah, that's essentially yeah. So that's one way to do it. What else you got?
You could try to take it on in combat, but
As a fighter, I would not, considering this is like a probably creature
could-
with very weird abilities. I would want magic to fight it, maybe like fire magic.
you could assess, like being a good player is also assessing a situation, saying I shouldn't fight this.
Figuring out if you're qualified. Like, as a wizard, I would not fight a wizard who seems more powerful than me, because that means they have all the stuff I can do, plus a bunch of other stuff.
You could also try to like tie a lasso together, throw it on the guarding tool,
Mhm.
and then quickly pick it up as like your action and run out.
If we set up what kind of items I had, like a coil of rope or something, I would have thought of something like that.
Coil
But I'm
of
working
rope
with,
is-
like, bare bones here.
Coil of rope is usually what comes in like your
Avenger
kits,
pack.
any pack that you
Yeah.
have, and you'll probably like have a sword and a shield and
Yeah.
some armor on.
That's not fun considering this thing eats metal, but yeah. If I'm a fighter, that's another thing. I don't know if I would punch it either because it's made of metal. So that would kind of hurt a little bit, maybe. This is just stuff I'm thinking as a player. You can tell me if I'm completely wrong or not, but that's part of the fun.
Yeah.
If players assume something about a monster and they're completely wrong, do not correct them. Let them find out themselves. Let them cast the spell and it not work at all. Let them punch it and take damage from punching it.
Yep.
That's pretty much how encounters work in terms of letting your players discover things, but yeah.
So, what's your play here?
Do I have a coil of rope?
Yeah.
I'll try that. Because
So-
it seems like a good option to not provoke it.
That kind of thought process would be just like, all right, maybe make a stealth check at this point. Let's say you pass the stealth check and he
Mhm.
doesn't really notice you, because you could like trip over and then all of your armor and stuff clangs,
Mhm.
and it's like, oh, I just heard the clang of metal. Turns around, sees its next meal. Maybe not you, but maybe your items.
Yeah.
You're just wearing your items.
Mm-hmm.
So
You're not made of metal. Don't tell it you have metal in your blood, though. Iron.
So
It was a dumb joke. So, yeah. I'm going to try to do the coil of rope.
getting this, it would be just like a simple check, just getting it around. But considering the creature is disinterested in the item,
Mhm.
it might not notice at all. And if you pass your stealth check, same thing.
Mhm.
So the there are a couple of
Let's-
solutions here.
Let's talk about what happened if I failed the check versus made the check.
So let's say you the stealth check.
Yeah.
So let's say you fail the stealth check and you alert the creature. At this point, I'm gonna give you a chance to do an action.
Mhm. Like
before,
evasive?
before you actually not evasive, but before you actually get it engaged into combat,
Mhm.
right? I made you do the stealth check. You didn't do it. So this is your free turn before you actually roll for initiative and then go in initiative order.
Mhm.
So what would you like to do? If let's say you trip and then you clang your items together and it makes a sound and it
I
notices
would like
you.
to stand as completely still as possible, if I can, in whatever position I'm in.
Kind of a little hunched over.
Yeah, whatever.
You already snuffed out your torch at this point.
Okay, so
Like-
it's dark.
So I guess technically you would have your sword and your torch.
Okay, so I can't see now.
Or wait, did you?
If I trip, does my torch snuff out,
no,
or do
no,
I
no.
just trip?
You would just trip. You could stumble.
Okay.
But no, you didn't take your snuff your torch out because you're a human. And
Yeah.
You need that vision. So it sees you, and you sees the sword
Mhm.
glinting in the light.
Yep.
It sees the torch, and it sees you with your armor on.
Yeah.
All right, and you said you wanted to stay completely still.
As still as possible.
So here, standing still actually wouldn't work because it still has that vision.
I was hoping that it just wouldn't notice me if I was being really still, considering I might have other metal in here that's oh, I'll get to it later. But
But it sees that sword, and now it wants that sword.
yeah,
So because it
That's what I
sees
didn't want to
extra
happen.
food. So you roll for initiative here.
Yeah.
Now this does not necessarily mean you have to start fighting it. This is
you
just
can run away with your initiative.
you could just run away, or you could do something else. But this creature now has an objective: get the sword from that guy by
Mhm.
whatever means possible.
Yep.
Maybe get his armor off too.
Mhm.
It sees food. Maybe
Yep.
food's not a hot commodity for it.
Yeah.
So let's say you roll for initiative, and let's say you end up going 1st.
Mhm.
What do you do?
What I would try to do, given that you said I have a sword and a shield, or just a sword?
You have the sword out and a torch out right now.
Okay.
It would be a short sword.
I would sheath my sword.
Okay.
Is it a back sheath or a side sheath? What kind of sword
like
is
a side sheath because it's a sword.
Is it made of leather?
The scabbard.
Yeah.
No, it can be just a simple
Is most of it not made of metal?
yeah. It's,
So most of the
it's
metal of the sword's
leather.
concealed at this point.
Well. Yes and no. This would come into character customization. Yeah, the sword's away.
Well, I don't think there's metal scabbards. It's
No,
usually
it-
cloth or some kind of material.
Yeah, it could be cloth scabbard.
Not metal.
Sure, we'll say for this example, it's cloth or something non-metal.
Okay. I would sheath it. Would that be an action? Or would that just be a free
I
action?
would say that's a free action because it's
Alright.
something you do real quick.
I would sheath it and wield my torch kind of in front of me, kind of stay away.
All right,
And I would get in a ready position.
all right. And are you doing anything with your action, bonus action, and movement?
I'm going to. Can I prepare an action?
You can prepare an action because I gave you a free action for
If
shooting your
it
sword.
charges me aggressively, not just like starts walking towards me, if it charges me aggressively, I want to start running the other way.
All right. So, on the creature's turn, obviously it sees its next meal. So if you're going to do take this action and run away, you can take the dash action on your turn,
Mhm.
and you'd be able to get 30 feet away.
Okay.
The speed of this thing is 40 feet, so essentially it's just going to chase you for its turn, and
Okay.
it can dash to get up to you, but that's really all it can do.
Is that what it's gonna do?
Or it could just run up,
Okay.
see that you're running away, and just go back to its meal.
Okay.
That's really it. It just scares you off.
Okay. So what would happen if I made the stealth check?
So if you made the stealth check, then you could try to roll to see if you
Could lasso the
like
pickaxe.
slide. I guess that would be sleight of hand because it's dexterity based,
Mhm.
and you're trying to get onto something. Roll a sleight of hand check. If that saves, then yes.
Meaning I make it.
Yeah, and you can drag it. Still using that stealth, being very quiet, very cautious.
Okay.
If not, then you just miss,
Mhm.
and maybe you need to re-roll stealth. Maybe I don't know. It's just kind of iffy, but you don't want to get noticed by the monster. And if you do, another option would be just for the rust monster. Hey, maybe give it the sword,
Mhm.
and you could throw the sword to the side, your sword, or maybe
I
even
could
your
probably get
helmet.
another sword of the reward
You
money
could
from this quest.
Exactly. Or
It's that kind of critical thinking where if your sword's kind of just old and you're planning on buying a new one anyway, and you know you're gonna get 900 gold, that's a lot for a quest reward.
but
If
you
you know you're gonna get
you've
50 gold for a
identified-
quest reward,
you've identified what it wants from you.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, this is easy.
you can bait it.
Magical item for a non-magical item, done.
Mm-hmm.
Throw the sword to the side of the cave.
Yep.
And so that's what it's distracted on.
Mhm.
You run over, get the thing that it seemed disinterested in,
And you just leave.
and then you just leave.
That would be a very interesting way, and that requires a roll to make it happen, a correct roll, a successful roll to make that happen, to even execute that. So that's where rolling is very crucial.
Not exactly, but if you got the idea to say hey, just throw it to the side, I'd allow you to just do a dex,
Without even the stealth
a
roll.
dex. Let's say you're in combat,
Mhm.
and then you start, and it sees you failed the stealth roll.
Yeah.
Just throw the item to the side, and then prepare your action to on your turn, or you could drop the sword or something,
Mm-hmm.
and you could throw the sword to the side, run over the item, and then on its turn, since it knows what it wants,
Yeah.
it goes for the sword,
Mhm.
and then that's how it's going to spend its turn, because it's not hostile towards you. You didn't do anything. You
Yeah.
just fed it.
Yeah.
You just gave it a meal.
You could probably get a new pet out of this, a terrifying metal beetle pet.
You feed it metal and have a good day.
That's that'd be really funny.
And then now that it's gotten what it wants, you can just leave.
Quest done.
Now, in the case it did want the magic item, you could just run away.
Yeah, and tell them there's a thing in there. I need more people.
Yes.
The people whoever gave you the quest.
So there's here's your thing, gotta go, bye.
Yeah.
And other than that, that's really all it is. It's just some practicing decision making in a scenario where you might get hurt.
Mhm.
Your character could possibly go into an encounter where it's not going to be favorable.
Mhm.
But explore your options.
Yep.
Ask your DM questions before you try to do something, and then when you do it and the DM gives you an outcome, and you're like, well, why didn't that work, or why can't I do this? And they're like, well, I kind of have to move on to the next person.
Mhm.
Ask really the big what ifs before session and after session.
Yeah.
Just for clarity, so that you don't spend 15 minutes in your game wasting other people's time and getting an outcome that you don't want,
Mhm.
and the DM also doesn't want.
Yeah.
Because he wants everybody to be engaged and having fun.
If you're concerned of if you can do something or not, have your reference books during your session if you have reference books, but also do research ahead of time. Maybe if this is a thing you came up with on the fly, maybe don't try it. Ask your DM if it would have worked, so you know it for the future.
Exactly.
Or just wing it and try it, and if he says it doesn't work, just accept that
Yeah,
and ask
then
him later.
character growth.
Yeah.
Maybe not in a deadly scenario, but still you want.
Yeah, don't take risks in deadly scenarios.
You
Do
want to
what
use
works.
these mock scenarios to really build up
Mhm.
and practice playing your character and
Yes.
using your abilities. That's really all it is.
Yes.
Because one character might rush in head first, not even think about combat. Another character might run away.
Yep.
So
And then you split the party, which is what you're not supposed to do. So it's all about knowing what you're. If you're alone, you can make whatever decision you want because you control most of that situation. But if you're with people, you need to make sure you're all on the same page. And if you're not, get on the same page.
I think that about covers it.
I think that about does too. next time on our show, on episode 9, we will have more in the world of DMing for you, because we covered everything basically for character stuff so far. So we will have something more for you then. You can find us on the Pirate Media 1 SoundCloud 2 weeks from now. Thank you for listening.